Now we're recording for official. So, to give everybody a little background on I'm super excited. I've been pumped. I've been telling everybody online how excited I am, and people in real life to have this Zoom with you. You and I have actually talked a couple of times in the past. And when Cindy Hook and I first met, we got together because we were both interested in short-term rentals. To me, that's the sexy side of real estate investing. Right. Sure, fix and flips is cool, and here's the hard work that I've done. Look at what I've done. To me, the short-term rental market is really fascinating, especially when you start talking about arbitrage. It only really turned on keyed in people to know what arbitrage means. So hopefully we can really get into that and talk about that in detail. But let everybody know who you are and what you're doing and working.
Jason's not here. Okay.
I'm gonna see if I can't make sure.
Huh? Yeah.
All right. Floor is yours, sir.
So my name is Richie Matthews. My wife and I, for about 10 years, a little over 10 years, produced large outdoor festivals for our own company. And before that, we did that for clients for another 6 or 7 years. And so we've been in the event business, and it's very seasonal in Southern California for our business. So from late fall till the first quarter of the next year, we're typically slow. And so I had heard about arbitrage, rental arbitrage is that, you rent an apartment or a house long-term, you furnish it, and then rent it on a shorter term basis, midterm as a furnished rental or like an Airbnb. And that's what they call arbitrage. It's totally misnamed. And arbitrage is a lock. It's a guaranteed profit. And this is not, it's just another business. But I had heard a bunch about it. I was very skeptical after I started researching based on some of the people that were hawking it online. And that just goes because there's a lower barrier to entry, right? It's not like, investing in property and that sort of thing. And so I was, again, skeptical. I looked into it. I asked around a little bit, and it started really intriguing me as I looked at the numbers, the cash on cash return numbers. And so I'm very familiar with real estate investment. So I most of the benefits of owning didn't exist in arbitrage. It's simply a cash flow play. And the rate of that cash seemed too good to be true when I was reading about it. So I was skeptical. I started approaching apartment buildings. That's the model that I chose based on my market. And I went local. I stayed in my general area. My wife and I drew a circle around where we live, around 45 minutes. We listed the cities in those areas and then called them all, looked online to see if it was legal, see if short-term rentals were allowed, if there was a permitting process, if so, how long of a turnaround. For instance, one of the cities, you apply and you get it back in 2 months. If you're buying a property and you're in escrow, fine, that's totally fine. But if you're rental arbitrage, you can get an apartment tomorrow and you need to start producing cash then. And so those cities we took off our list. We fine-tuned it, found the city of San Diego in our area, knew, and of course, because of where we live, we're familiar. We kind of know if it's a bad neighborhood or a good neighborhood, which is, I always think, smart to stay local in the beginning, beside the logistical part of this business. And we gave it a shot. It took me 4 months to get a yes from apartment buildings. So we were pitching it. I was pitching it incorrectly. Now I know. And so I finally had a apartment complex, a nice one, and a really nice part of town that said yes. So we set it up, and it immediately started cash flowing by the end of the month. And I had asked for I did a lot wrong in the beginning, but one of the few things I did correctly was I always ask for rent concessions. So I asked for a certain amount of weeks up front, free. And you typically very difficult to do that, but when times are tougher, or when it's off season and the building has higher vacancy, they're more willing to work to give away a low deposit and a smaller get in. And so that's what we did. So I got 4 weeks of free rent on my first 1-bedroom apartment. I furnished it, and by the second week of the second month, the furniture that I paid for paid back. And so we did another one, and now it's March of 2020, and the COVID hit and took out our entire annual event cycle. We took all of our events all over the country; they were gone. And so and I'm sure that's an age-old story with a lot of people, but I naively thought, no, our summer festivals are fine. We're going to be fine. And so, but we were a bit of a pinch. So we thought, all right, what do we do? Our event business, which we were just about to get into the big season, is over. And so we went back to that building, and I negotiated 2 more apartments. One of them was very nice. One was like a penthouse. The other one was another 1-bedroom. And we got 10 weeks free rent up front. We're in April of 2020. COVID was, ready. It was going full steam here in San Diego. And buildings were really afraid. And so we actually, I suspected that some of the folks that had said no to us would maybe change their mind, and they did. And so we went on a tear and just picked up as many properties as we could afford and furnished them. And we did this with zero design experience or hospitality experience. I have no, training in how to hire housekeepers or to train them and all that. And so after 12 months, so in March of 2021, we had 18 apartments in all different parts of town in a few different cities here. And we were doing everything wrong. And there was no more time left in the day, didn't have a system. I was trading my time for money, which I promised I wouldn't do. And so I hired an operations manager from hospitality, and he brought in all of his systems. We picked up a channel manager, a pricing tool. We hired VAs in the Philippines. Now we have a full team of them. We hired and trained our own housekeepers, a very unique way. We don't hire housekeepers, traditional housekeepers. We hire people from other realms and like retail, and we train them our way. And anyway, so we wound up, after another year, I moved out of operations entirely and focused on acquisitions, and for the betterment of the company. With me being out of operations, it was the reason why we scaled. And I'm good at being able to pick up new doors. We leveraged relationships and fine-tuned my approach. And we picked up another 27 apartments that next 12 months. And so at the end of March of 2022, last year, a year ago, we were at 45 apartments, 1 and 2 bedrooms. And then we started doing a better job in design, and we started bringing in people for that. And travel rebound was incredible. And so last year was a remarkable year for most people who were short-term renting. The problem, though, last year was, at least in the markets I operated, if you rented or purchased property to short-term rent in these markets, now we know you most likely did those at the top. And so they cash flowed probably well most of last year, but this year, a lot of people got hit. People who rented, especially, people who did arbitrage especially, came in, and this year, some of them may be a little bit in trouble, right? So because they're doing it the way, so if it wasn't for COVID, it could have been me, because I would not have learned how to do this correctly. I would have probably had 3 or 4 units and then off to my event business, because that's the high season was about to start. So because of the situation I was in, and because I learned all of this to scale during really tough times, right? The 2020 was crazy. And so now I see what's happening in the economy. What I think is about to happen is actually an opportunity, much like COVID was, to have a conversation with a lot of these buildings and be the solution to their vacancy problems. And vacancies in apartments in cities tracks inflation. And so all of last year, we basically didn't scale. We fine-tuned our system, we improved our process, we built cash reserves, and then we started by the end. And I also wasn't getting concessions. So it wasn't just because I was a genius. It was the opposite. I would have preferred to scale last year, but every time I went to a building and they would say no, full deposit, no concession, and do the math at our average rent's $2,250 times 45 properties, all that would have been tied up indefinitely, because we're in all the buildings, pretty much all of them. And so I only two of them, we picked up two last year, and again, weren't the best deals. So I go back to now saying, if we can't get a concession, or if we can't get a low or no deposit, then you just have to say no. And I thought, okay, that's it. The model doesn't work, and it only works in pretty tragic times. But then lo and behold, around November of last year, we were getting contact by the largest apartment operators in the country, real estate investment trusts. Two of them found out about us through one of their new employees was a leasing agent, one of the buildings we were at. And so she called me. She said, "Hey, look, I think we have some interest with you. We're over here." And they offered right up front 4 weeks, which we negotiated to 8 weeks. And this is the largest apartment building they have in every single market in the country. They operate, and they declined me so many times. And so now we picked up two. They offered 3 more recently, and that was last month. So we got 4 weeks up front, another 4 weeks. So we got 8 weeks rent concession. The other 4 weeks over the following 3 months, and we're in the last of those 3 months now. And so that was it. So all we had to do was go in there with furniture, and it was a $600 deposit. And these are really nice apartments by the beach. It's a A-class neighborhood, and the building's new build, all the amenities, which typically doesn't happen. Most of the time, we were getting our deals in B-, in a nicer neighborhood, but they were the building that needed a reno, and so they weren't be able to get market rates. So they would allow short-term rental operators, corporate housing companies like us to come in. Now I think there's a maturity in the market. A lot of the buildings are aware of what we do. They either don't like it or they'll think about doing it. And especially now, if one of the criteria is we actually look in neighborhoods where the building has a higher than market vacancy. So proportional to the market, they have a higher vacancy, and not because they're a bad building, but because of circumstances or whatever. And so then we'll approach them and then ask them, "Hey, look, maybe we could pick up 5 doors. We can be a solution to your problem. We have, we pay rent on time. Our units are left in show condition." I said, "When you get your keys back from a tenant after 2 years, what does the apartment look like?" I said, so we do all the light maintenance up to $200, and we screen our guests. And so then that's the conversation that we typically have. And they'll either say no or yeah. And if they say yeah, then we negotiate.
And even if they say no, you don't write them off. Like you just said, those are just seeds that have been planted. Hopefully next year, the year after, they'll
Sure.
Yep.
Sure, and that could change with management too. One of the things I don't like to do, and I don't think you should do, is try to twist their arm, because it takes you out of the leverage situation trying to get concessions. And so, like you just said, Shane, if oftentimes if I go to a building, they'll say for whatever reason. In the beginning, it was because I didn't have a track record or enough experience, and then we went back to a few, and they wound up saying yeah. But some of them are just not over. They can't get over the idea of that. They didn't want a hotel in their building of 20 apartments next to tenants. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, well, yeah, you're right. Now, most of the buildings are large operations. And my old rule of thumb used to be, if I walk out the front, I need to see at least 1 or 2 hotels or motels in my area. It has to be in a commercial area, not residential, in city centers, that sort of thing. And so our threshold is higher than a traditional owned STR, in my opinion, on where we operate, despite the law. Even if the law is 100%, I still am more reticent to get in a building more than 4 doors or 5, perhaps, just because of the natural friction between residents and short-term rental guests. And so we usually cap ourselves, and we leverage that relationship. Instead of getting more in that same property, we'll ask them where else we can do what we can operate. And so I spread laterally in that capacity with our relationships with them in our city and other cities now. And that's what we're doing. We're looking in 2 other states, as a matter of fact, with buildings that we talk to about how we can help other cities, if other cities are interested in this, can they make an intro? And they did, and we're negotiating in other cities.
So how long did you spend in your local neighborhood before you kind of branched out?
1 year. So it was pretty quick. We were only in, I think, 5 buildings, and to get to 4 buildings to get to the 18. And then when Eric, our operations guy, joined, we immediately went to like 25 from one building. And then we went and so on. And so at that point, we thought, well, this is great. Why don't we just find the company that we operate in? We'll just look at a map and see where they are, and then study those markets, see if we think they'll work. And if we think they'll work and no one else is operating in that building, which we won't go into another building if they are, then we reverse engineer it, see if we can get an introduction to the building manager or the market manager, and then have them put in the good word for us. And it's a little bit warmer of a conversation than knocking on their door cold.
And what you're doing versus many others when you talk about short-term rentals is you're really focused on the apartment space. So when you're having a conversation with the owner or manager, they may be representing a dozen or 100 units. And you're just trying to get your foot in the door, so to speak, with them, versus a lot of people are out chasing short-term rentals, doing arbitrage over a single family home.
Oh yeah.
Once you build that relationship, you have the potential to have several deals come out of that one apartment complex.
Sure. And I know, in fact, there's a guy in this market reached out to me, and he said he had 25 single family homes in this county, and from what I understand, it's hugely lucrative. The cash flow can be immense, but there's a few problems with the way I operate in that model. And firstly, I own property. I wouldn't give rent concession to for a tenant moving in the first month. I wouldn't give a half or a quarter deposit. It has to be a full deposit. And most owners of homes, rightly so, don't do that. So the ability to scale is limited by that. Okay, let's just say you have a ton of funds and you still want to go that route. Well, then to put in a backyard or a garage, or to really make a house, sort of short-term rental ready, it's a much bigger investment. Not just the fact that the house is bigger and there's staircases and hallways and more walls for art and rugs. And so the cost can really go wild. And so I stayed recently on winter break. We stayed in Palm Springs on a vacation rental. And I looked at the house. And I said, there's no way someone could rent this house and make it look this nice. And to own a house in short-term rent, I think is fantastic. But for me, I just think apartment is much more turnkey than a home is. Most rental homes don't come in the same condition as a nice apartment, in that you don't have to do any work to it. And so for that reason, I just thought the faster way for me to scale. And now I understand the apartment model. And you're right, you can go, I can now spread to other cities, just by getting one deal. I can get 2 buildings that have 5 units in, and I'm in a new market. I just hire a housekeeper, and maybe has a handy husband, or she's handy, and they can be and we do that. And so we can get our foot into a market that way. And so, yeah. And so I think the house market is also susceptible to what's about to happen. So I always focus on markets that have 3 strong travel demand in work travel, like nurses, government contractors that are coming for a gig, insurance relocation, jobs, things like that. And that's that was our bread and butter during COVID. We had nurses and teachers came from Arizona to do Zoom classes in San Diego, and we had that. So we knew that business travel collapsed, right? So we didn't have that. But we require a dynamic business economy from manufacturing, and then there's tech and so on. And so there's always business travelers coming. And also, of course, vacation. You want a big vacation market, and that's the one most people focus on. I mean, AirDNA said the top 10, they had recent top 10 Airbnb markets or short-term rental markets, they said. And they were like Jackson Hole and Anchorage. And I said, now those are great vacation rental markets. I think they should rename that, because I think going forward, especially in the recession, I think hosts, whether you own or you arbitrage, have to be prepared for 1 or maybe 2 of those sectors to take a hit. And I happen to think it's going to be the vacation rental market. I think that's the sector. And so we're going in markets where we're right by hospitals, right by military bases, right in the middle of a business zone. And then, there's a vacation draw to it, because people always do a little traveling, even if it's just by car. And so if you can get in the market, that's the way I'm recommending. Now's the time to get in, get a good deal, whether you're purchasing, right, creatively, or if you're doing arbitrage. Now's a great time to get in smart and then beat the competition instead of worrying about the economy. Beat the competition by getting in markets that you have all those three factors.
Lots of really good questions here, and I'm trying to keep up with you without interrupting your flow. But when you look at an apartment, what size apartment is the niche, right? Which ones really work best for you? Or do they all work?
No, there's some that we've just, when I say formula, I think I told you earlier, it's only things that have worked that I've kept doing, and the things that were disaster. And there were so many in the beginning that we did, like a price point. I remember my wife saying right in the beginning of the summer in 2020, we were dropping our prices. Airbnb wiped out the calendar. I don't know if you remember that. They changed their extenuating circumstances, which basically they broke their contract with hosts. They changed their extenuating circumstances to include people that were affected by COVID, whether it was travel or got it. And so they wiped out our calendars. And so I think that was April and May. And so to keep up, to try to keep up, and our margins were so low, we could net at 45% occupancy, which was great. And so we dropped our prices though. And there is a number, at least for us, the number was like, I think $75. And my wife said, no, don't do that. I'm like, why? It's just sitting there. And we found out why, because you just get bad people. And so we learned so many lessons that year. And so all I did was take out all the good stuff that happened, the security, the screening that we do, little security devices that we use, just steps in the process that allowed me to realize that, there is a formula for this. So the sweet spot for us are 2-bedroom apartments that are right in the middle of everything. So location trumps amenities. So if you had to choose in a building and the building didn't have a pool or a gym, but it was right by a major university and 2 hospitals, or right in the restaurant zone in the town, or perhaps right at the beach. In fact, we have some across the street from Dog Beach and Del Mar, and they're right off the design district, but they're very dated. And even our smart lock malfunctions because they get the sea air all the time, and they are what they are. But people throw their things in there and they go. And so there is a trade-off, for at least for us, in getting in buildings on the cheap, getting rent concessions. But so for us, we found the best place to be, or maybe B minus properties, but you're able to get concessions, but they're incredible locations, right? They're right by, like, steps away from where things are. So that's where we're looking for now. So wherever things are, we just want to be right by the convention center. Later on top of that, maybe there's a big government building. So because the government flies contractors around like crazy, they stay for long periods of time. They're the best tenants. The best guests in the world are nurses. They sleep all day. They work all night, sleep all day. So we get blackout curtains and box fans in all of our properties. We advertise them, and we have so many right now staying. We actually reached out to a bunch of nursing recruiters in our market, and we booked up all of our properties all the way up until summer. So we're going to open them up for short. Yeah, I think the midterm rental market is one of the biggest opportunities coming, especially if you think about it this way: 3% of American cities regulate short-term rentals.
Yes.
That number's going to triple this year alone in the markets I operate in. So, if you wanted to save yourself a headache and not worry about short-term rentals, or perhaps do both, I think appealing to midterm rental travelers. Another one is insurance relocation companies. You just get on their list. Somebody has a flood or a fire, then you're their spot. We get a bunch of those. And we also we're in with a housing company for the U.S. Navy, and we're in San Diego, right? So we just housed 6-month stays last week, all at once, March 1st, and we got them all out of the blue. And so now we know that person, and we're always sending them property. So short-term rentals are incredibly lucrative, but if midterm rentals is as well. You get almost 85-90% of the same value, and you get all that. You don't have to pay for all that turnover.
So when you are negotiating a master lease for a property, what kind of terms are you getting as far as, a year, 2 years, 3 years? What are you looking at?
the longer the better to validate your spend on, first of all, the permit these days. Now, at least in one of the markets we're in, it's $1,000 for the new ordinance in city of San Diego. It takes place. Enforcement starts May 1st. And if you don't have a license and you're on Airbnb or Vrbo or Expedia or Booking.com, they'll change your listing to 30-day minimum, 31-day minimum. And so there's that, right? So you don't want to get into a place for a year and you have the short-term rental license is really only good for that address. And so that's something to really think about. That's one of the downsides of arbitrage, right? So you have to think about that. Now, that's not the case in most markets. Most are significantly less, and you could choose not to be in those markets. But the other ones, we choose the longest lease possible. 24 months is typically at least what I want. I also, not doing as much these days, but in the beginning, I was unsure about this model. So I asked for and got early termination clauses in our leases. But I don't dig in on that one. It's not as important. I just really am adamant about getting a low deposit, $300 to $500 for a 1-bedroom and a top $600 for a 2, and at least 4 weeks free rent up front. And then we hand them our addendum. We give them, it's a 3-paragraph addendum that says we'll be subleasing. We're not restricted on where we can advertise, which means Airbnb or Vrbo or anywhere, right? And so we don't like to write those things out because it has such a bad reputation, but we do say we're not, and we always put in there, this is a company and we're not actually living there, and the company is just facilitating our guests to stay there. It's a simple addendum that we verbally negotiated, but we actually put them in there because most leases by default have language about that, and addendum supersedes whatever it's mentioning.
And you're just trying to be as transparent as possible to say, like you said, I'm not going to be living here. We are going to be renting this place out.
Oh yeah. No, and this is the craziest thing. I'm in a lot of the groups I belong to. They're like, so you let the owners know? I said, of course you do. Yeah. Of course you'll be spinning your wheels, and in 3 months, less than 3 months, you'll be gone. And so of course you do. If you get a no, then move on. But you can't go in there and just start out thinking that you're living there and start doing that. I think those days are over. I do believe there were quite a few people doing it that way. Who knows? Maybe there's some now. I think especially now, because most building managers are aware of this model or have been pitched it and said no and say no. But I do believe there is an approach that's more effective. I was doing it a way that I think some people are doing it now. And so like I said, we have an approach that's a little bit warmer. We typically get an introduction. There are buildings that will adamantly say no to it, especially now with cities that have ordinances. So I think there's more knowledge about it. And because of that, there's buildings that will be on one side or the other.
What kind of insurance requirements do you have but are required for some of these bigger hotel chains?
Yeah, great question, because most of the leases that you have will say something default that says you need to get insurance, but you can get actual renter's insurance, which would satisfy them, but it's incorrect. It's not effective. It's a renter's insurance applies to the people who live there. It doesn't apply for this. So there's only one. Maybe there's another. Maybe you can let me know. We use Proper, but that's the only one that insures short-term rentals and for arbitrage especially. I think there's another one, but Proper, it's a little bit pricey. Proper is the one that we use, and it does protect you. You could also add another layer of insurance on top of that as well. I don't trust the insurance that you get through Vrbo or for Airbnb. Those, especially since Airbnb went public, it's tough to get a claim paid for, let alone getting the insurance. So we use our own and get our own, and typically get deposits and have other protections against guest damage.
Give us an idea of, for a 2-bedroom apartment, how much money are you spending to furnish that, or does it really depend on the market?
It may, but I'm in 6 markets in San Diego County, and the new markets we're moving into, the furniture, just based on what we just calculated. I actually created a calculator for our furniture, for our furnishings, and they've all been pretty similar. The funny part of this is that when we first started a 1-bedroom, I got in our first 1-bedroom, I think it was $4,500 in furniture. Most of that, all the big ticket stuff, the bed frame, not the mattress, but the bed frame and the sofa and the television, prices are similar despite inflation. all the little things, the Brita and the teapot and all the little things, even the laundry detergents now almost 4 times as much. Then we used to get a 5-gallon Sun for like, I think it was $4. And so we use some things, it's a Walmart and Amazon, but a lot of the things that we need to be more sturdy, like a coffee table and those kinds of things, we get locally. We spend a little bit of money for them, but we learned the hard way that bed frames and things like that. Well, I went through 3 in those studios I just mentioned. We went through 3 in 12 months when we first got them. So now we use this one Zenith platform bed, and you can get it online. It will get to you in about 4 days, 5 days. We use a 14 or a 12-inch memory foam from Zenith. And so those are our standard bed, but now you can get into a 1-bedroom. Plus I do accent walls. We swap out the chandeliers. We do a smart lock, a minute decibel meter, a few other things that we do a little bit nicer. And the furnishing is a little bit nicer than when I first did it. And we always do the accent walls now. And so now a 2-bedroom would be about $6,500. Now I'll say that out on Facebook, and people will say it's got to be at least double that. And I said, no, we're actually kind of cheap. That's how we get it. And we have a spreadsheet for that. And I just looked at the one we're about to do, and it's about that. Maybe a little bit more in other markets, maybe a little bit less, but here it's around 65 for a 2-bedroom, around 5,500 for a 1-bedroom.
And again, that's a huge advantage over a single family home, for example.
Yeah. You
have a lot more property to get ready for, and it's a different market, right? A different niche. We've had he talked about, he does short-term rentals. They're looking at very specific themes. So they look at a market like in Nashville, and whatever's trending the hottest, like bachelorette parties, they build the whole house around that theme, and they spend $65,000 on a house. The theme,
wow.
That's a whole different ball game than $6,500 for a 2-bedroom apartment to make it.
So our date night, the people that are coming down from LA or Orange County or the desert, and we're appealing to them for a few days, a totally different type of people for that kind of thing. Those houses that they do those things are, and that's a great market. I mean, those did really well. Maybe I'm being too guarded, but I think that if stuff hits the fan, then the single family home on an Airbnb may be more susceptible to that particular travel market. And there'll be no recourse for you to get a business traveler. I mean, maybe you can get a house full of traveling nurses, and some people do that. What's that guy? There's a guy in Bigger Pockets, Jesse Vasquez. He does that up in Modesto. He's great. He has like 60 properties, and I believe he owns most of them. And then I think he didn't have enough supply for all the demand he was getting because he had so many contracts. So he went out and arbitraged a bunch of houses. And I think he does that. And I think he does really well. And so it's just me. I mean, I bet you there's guys out there that say, no way, the apartments are, the margins are too thin. And if they're that thin, why don't you own? And so our rule of thumb is $1,500 net per door per month around the year. And so in Christmas, it might be or December might be super low. In January, it's off the chart, right? And so, or it was last year. I mean, January was ridiculous. And so that's my average. It's $1,500 per month per door, 2 or 1 bedroom. So we could probably dissect the portfolio and go, okay, the 2 bedrooms in the studios are not that much. The 2 bedrooms are carrying those, but the 2 bedrooms and the 1 bedroom serve a different audience, right? And so we actually do a trick where we get a 2 bedroom and we list it as a 2 bedroom, and we also list it as a 1 bedroom with a den. So we're appealing to 2 travelers, right? And so we do that, and it works, and we keep them the same price, and it still works. But so at that rule of $1,500, if you're in for, let's just say $6,500 for a 2 bedroom, another $600 for the deposit, and you've negotiated no lease up front. So now you're into that for a little over $7,000. You should be able to, by the second week of your second month at 75 to 70% occupancy, you should be able to pay yourself back, which if you think on that return, I can't think of a better, and I haven't seen one out there where you can return and then now you're cash flowing. Now, here's the other part of it. If you figure out what your own personal expenses are and you divide into that $1,500, you're like, okay, I need 10 of those before I need to hire somebody. I waited too long, but at at 10, you can hire an operations manager and make it relatively passive. I don't know if there's anything that's that passive, but insofar as I'm not into the day-to-day stuff in the business, I stay in acquisitions because I love it. It's very similar to my deal flow stuff in my investments, and it keeps me close to what's happening. I mean, it's a simple job. I could actually train and farm it out, but so I'm not in the day-to-day. So I've always thought, well, where else can you get a return that quick? Scale it to 10 doors if you wanted to go there, and then just give it to someone else, and then pick up a unit here and there when it's good, when the deal is good, and not forcing it. And I can't think of too many other businesses that at least for us has allowed us to do. We've been in it now just over 3 years.
So again, most of your leases are the midterm style, right? Greater than 30 days.
No. So we're short-term rental operators. We just sort of fell into these contracts. We listed on Furnish Finder, got some gigs from nurses. We wound up asking them who their nursing job recruiter was, found out that the recruiter in their agency contacted them, and then asked them, say, hey, look, we're your supplier. We have 50 properties in San Diego County. Do you need a place? And so now they're giving us jobs. We did the same thing. We listed on the Landings, which is another midterm rental platform. And we, through that process, got a Navy gig, contacted that thing. And we're now talking. In fact, I think we got one yesterday for Carlsbad for 6 months. And so, yeah, so no, I believe the midterm rental is a great play to balance your portfolio. If you have too many properties in one neighborhood, they might be cannibalizing the sales. So you might be competing with yourself. And so I think it's a great play. Plus, it takes off pressure off your operations. The costs are lower. It allows you to scale. If you take 5 units and move them right into midterm, now you can go out and get 5 more short-term rentals to fill that space. And that's exactly what we're doing. But I love the midterm thing. But our bread and butter is short-term rentals.
So on your short-term rentals, that's a different agreement than your midterm rentals. And
so the agreement we have with the owners is that we're just renting for a couple of years, and we're a corporate housing company, and it's up to us how long we want to, how long our guests can stay. So in the operating agreement, they say we're subleasing it, and there's no term on it. All of them know, and so no, it's up to us completely if we want to, if we want someone in for 2 days or for 6 months.
all right. So have you come to any of your properties that your lease has come due, and then how is that handled? Have you been able to renew them, or have you had to vacate properties?
Yep, most of the times it's automatic. So we just received 2 just the other day, and they just, they're in their system. I think somebody has to manually accept it, but 2 of them came in there. The terms were acceptable. I didn't have to renegotiate it. And this was the second time. One of the buildings we're in only does 12 months. We prefer to do it longer, but every 12 months we get a little notification with it, and there was a modest increase in rent. A few of the other ones, there was 2 buildings that we decided not to re-up because they were raised. This was last year. They decided to raise it too much. They wanted more than, and it was the sign of last year here in San Diego. And so we didn't, but there hasn't been a case where a building didn't want to renew with us. There are 2 where they asked us if they can start screening our guests. So they had management change. It was a big company that came in and said, nope, we're fine with short-term rentals, but we screen each guest. I said, we couldn't do it. We don't have a system like that, and we don't really have a formal screening. We don't put people through the system. We depend on our platforms and other things that we do. And so in those instances, we phased out of those when the lease was up.
Your larger national client that's reached out to you and said, hey, we have opportunities for you all over the country. What's limiting you from just branching out and having hundreds of properties for next year?
So that's what the big players like Sonder do. So Sonder is a publicly traded company with 9,000 doors around the world. I believe they're all 1-bedrooms. They have a distinct style. They're very nice. I think the company is a great model. Now, there were a lot of companies like them in 2019. 2 or 3 of them got taken out during COVID. One of them just got a 3rd round of funding. Stay Alfred literally left the furniture in the places. I think the coffee was on the. There was some YouTuber went in the units and showed they like literally left the coffee in the pot. So they ran out of funding. They just mismanaged the whole thing, and they missed the best part of this, right? And so a lot of them said that's it. You know, a lot of the short-term rental investors. So that's the arbitrage world. It's just like anything. You just have to watch your cash, right? And so
Right.
the one that I always liked is Sonder, and they're all over. They're from Paris to here in San Diego. They have 25. What they do, though, I think what they do is they go into buildings during late construction and negotiate a floor or something like, or they're probably at this point, they're in so many, they probably have more opportunity than they can handle. And so in a smaller way, that's sort of what's happening with us. It became kind of a tipping point where we had enough opportunities, we're able to negotiate them now because we're operating. I think also what happened was one of the companies that I mentioned, Greystar, I'll tell you. So Greystar used to be adamantly opposed to letting other people sublease for short-term rent. In fact, they had it in their lease. They actually asked in your application, they actually had it in there. They went to Airbnb. I don't know if you know this, maybe it was late last year or just this year. They have a formal agreement with Airbnb to allow their residents to short-term rent while they're leaving, whether vacationing or out of their apartment, which I think is the worst idea in the world. I mean, who would want to stay in someone else's apartment, right? Some kid. I mean, I just thought the idea was terrible. But the signal to me was, oh, okay, so they have changed their mind, and they have, and so we sent out feelers, and that was the building I mentioned earlier. They wound up doing a deal with us. So I think companies like that have all the data. They know what's going on in the marketplace. I think they know, or at least they're probably concerned about vacancies in the next couple quarters, are more willing to do this if they're doing it with operators. And so I think that's why we were contacted. So sure, if we were to contact, a few of the biggest buildings and strategically figure out which cities we wanted to go in, sure, we'll do that. You have to watch, you have to be mindful that scaling too fast can hurt you. And that's what happened to Stay Alfred. So we're doing them 2 or 3 at a time. And in 2021, we did them boldly. We were doing 10 and 5 and those, and that was pretty wild. But now we're not. We're definitely going to do that, making sure that every single deal, we try to cash flow in the second week of the second month, and then we do another. And so others will definitely scale more than me. In fact, I'm tracking this one guy, don't know his name, but he's doing what we're doing. We got in at the same time. He's up to like 300 apartments somewhere in Chicago or something like that. Crazy, but it's just not my cup of tea. So we'll just do it, and we'll continue to grow. I think this is a great business model. It has to be tested in all seasons, right? And so we've been through a few, but probably not every one.
So you said you wanted cash flow by the second week of the second month. So is that first month really just getting the apartment ready together, and then the rest of it is advertising and scaling? How does that work?
No. So we have this trick where we set up on Thursday, and we're typically booked on Friday. So we'll open up our calendar a month advance, take delivery a month later, put up photos, especially if we're in a building where we already have photos. And if someone books it, we say, these aren't the exact photos. You're allowed to cancel and get a full refund if you want. But just so you know, these are almost identical. We'll have everything in there same, but these aren't the same photos. So the rule there is that we go in and we're cash flowing or we're earning on that Friday. Typically, that's how we do it. So we're earning our income for that month. Let's just say March. So March, we earned all of our money. That money pays back our furniture costs, that $5,500 plus the deposit. And usually by the first or second week of that following month, that's, let's say April, we'll now have fully paid ourselves back for our cost in. And now we're cash flowing from that moment on, profiting. That
raises the bar right there for me. That's pretty good, cool.
It's pretty crazy. So in the beginning, I would go into that's how I did it. I did the first 18 by myself. So I would order everything online, which is a big mistake. It was like an Amazon explosion or a IKEA explosion in these apartments. It was terrible. Back then, you could just do that, throw it on Airbnb and hit 80% occupancy. Now it's different. There's much more competition. You have to be more mindful about design and professional photography and where you're located and all that. And that's rightly so. I think those days of throwing it on Airbnb as an amateur and not using dynamic pricing and having not having a 24/7 team to answer calls. You have to, because people, for the craziest reason, book in the middle of the night. And so you wake up in the morning at 8 o'clock, they're like, sorry, I already booked, and you're answering them like I used to. So no, I think the first 18, I would send stuff to the apartment from Amazon and wait there for 3 days. I basically slept down in the apartment and set it up, and boom, it was ready to go. So I wasted 3, 4, maybe 5 days when I really could have done it more strategically, had the stuff sent to a warehouse, put it in a U-Haul, had a bunch of guys set it up in a day. We set up the Wi-Fi and we painted the accent wall, had a photographer in the morning of Friday to take the photos, and hopefully got them back by the time the guests checked in and uploaded them. If they weren't, and most of the time we get them the next day instead of the same day, we get them up. And if the guest said, hey, wait a minute, that TV's on a different wall, we say, hey, look, we already told you. We have had situations, we've maybe gotten a bad review or two, but I'd rather do that than let a property just sit there. So, you know, it is what it is. There's both cases to that. We're now more methodical. We have a couple extra days, but even the ones that we picked up last month, Eric, my operations guy, I haven't even seen them. I haven't even been in the last 20, and I drive by them. I see them all the time. I'm like, look, I think there's their truck, and I intentionally don't want to go in the properties because I want to say you can do this remotely. And so, yeah, and so he set it up, and I said, did you get it? He goes, I was connecting the Wi-Fi, and we were setting up the channels on the streaming, and the guest was walking up the stairs, and I got out, and we got out right at 3 o'clock. And I said,
That's
no
awesome.
way. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, and again, that says a lot to standardization as well, right? So you can have multiple apartments that are laid out the same, look the same, so that, as you said, the pictures are fairly close to being the same. It may not be identical, but you know, here's what you're going to get as a feeling overall.
Well, so let me preface that. So if we may negotiate to pick up 5 doors in one apartment, I'll take one, and then I'll say, hey, we're going to take the other 4 at the end of next month, and then we'll list those 4 with the photos of the first one. So, and we'll make sure that they're pretty close to being identical. So they're either on the same floor, we have 4 right in a row in one, and so they're pretty much identical. Same cabinetry, same. One of them had a different door thing, and so we'll throw the photos up on those, and then we'll get all those other 4 photos taken and make them distinct and try to change a few things. And we'll move pieces around. Like when one of them, those 4, we use the same exact bar stool style, but each of them, one's red, one's black, one's white, one's gray. So they stand out against the photos. So we change them over time, but just to get them up, listed, and booking or moved in, we have this little race. And so it's not perfect. And so for those people who want to make it perfect, there's a case to do that. I think that's fine, but we don't. We just want to make sure we have 1 day being idle, maybe 2, and then we have guests moved in. And then they can give us feedback, and we can tweak things and move a piece of artwork around or fix something. And that's usually the case, and that's how we've done it.
The contracts that you use to negotiate with your clients, as far as the long-term rentals go, is that something you've created over time? Is that something that you got out of the sub-2 community? Is that something you got from your attorney?
What was it? The negotiating?
Yeah, your contracts that you use to lock in your leases.
So the addendum is all that we bring to the table in the lease situation. We rely on their lease. Most of these apartment buildings will only use their leases. In the beginning, they were very reluctant to even incorporate an addendum. We used to use email as an addendum, and my attorney almost pulled her hair out. She said, no, don't do that. I'm like, they agreed to it. And she's like, no, so here's what you need to get them. If they can't incorporate that in the last page, then don't do the deal. So a lot of these are all online, right? You go to an apartment and all the materials are online. So you have to email that to them and make sure that they actually include it in it now. So all it is a 2 or maybe 3 paragraph addendum that we give them after we've negotiated those same things. So some of those, all those lease contracts are pretty much the same, but we use the apartment complexes so we don't have to pay for them, or, even if we wanted to, they wouldn't allow us to use our own. Would you share that addendum with us? Of course. Yeah, it's very straightforward. So it first says that they're giving us authority to sublease. And the reason why we say that is because in multiple places, in most standard leases, it says you can't. And so anything, from what I understand, our attorney said anything that's written in an addendum supersedes what's in a contract if it addresses that point. So if it says something about that, then all of a sudden it supersedes it, despite whatever the language that the lease says. Same thing with where you can advertise it. By default, most leases say you can't advertise on Craigslist, which who would advertise there, or Airbnb. It clumps Airbnb and Craigslist together. And it says it lists them out now. And so if you specifically write out, we're not precluded from listing in any site, including Airbnb and so on. And then the last one, the important one, it says that, you know, so-and-so LLC will not be occupying these properties. They'll be using it specifically for the purpose of furnished housing, short, mid, or long-term. And they just lay it out so there's no ambiguity in it. And it's literally like 3 paragraphs, which I can share.
Appreciate it. And then if you will, just email that to Cindy. We'll make it available to the group.
For sure.
When you're scaling out to other cities or other locations, or even you said it within your own city, you said you don't go out and you don't hire a cleaning company. You kind of train your own people. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, so I think it's important. Now, I'm not against property managers. I know there's a lot of co-hosts out there that do a great job. From my take, though, that 25 or 30% they're charging gross right off the top would if you do the math on what I just told you at the $1,500 net per door per month, that would be it. So if you own a property, I think there's a great case in having a property manager, because really the play in ownership is debt pay down and amortization and all the tax benefits and that. I'm sure if there's a cash flow, great, but that's not the most important thing. This is only a cash flow play. So I want to maximize every dollar. So I don't use a cleaning service. Firstly, cleaning services not only are expensive, but they're not paying their cleaners much. And they're sending a different cleaner every time. So not only do you not have control, and the cleaners are typically not as good as your own, and they're not trained in the nuances of your particular properties or your rules, but also they're different every time. So they have to relearn the gig. They're more expensive. And the most important thing is your a housekeeper in the short-term rental world is not a housekeeper in the ones that come to our house. So they take photos, they're knocking on doors to if people have overstayed, they're changing lockbox codes and door locks thing. They're doing a lot more, and a lot of traditional housekeepers won't do short-term rental housekeeping for those reasons. They're like, I'm a cleaner, that's what I do, and I respect that. But what we then do, instead of hiring someone that's had short-term rental experience, we'll hire people from Home Depot or Lowe's that are minimum wage, and we'll train them completely. And this was not my idea. This was Eric, and our operations guy. He said, we can train someone. We can get them way under market, because housekeepers in this market are pretty pricey, and it's one of our biggest costs. So we're able to get them down. We tell them you don't have to do laundry, even if we have a washer and dryer on site. We send all of our laundry out to a fluff and fold at $1 a pound, which is unheard of, especially in this market. And we got that. And so we're doing 200 pounds a day. And so, yeah, so for the $9 to $11 per turnover that we would otherwise get inside, plus we don't have to pay laundry detergent, all these other benefits, but we have professionally clean linens, and the housekeepers get to focus on housekeeping and cleaning. And the biggest benefit is that half hour that you're sitting around waiting for the stuff to dry. And so by the way, the first 2 months, I was part of the housekeeping. And those first 2 months, I went in. I remember Blanca, our housekeeper. I wanted to see if 2 hours would cut it for a 1-bedroom, and she was done in an hour and a half waiting for the dryer. If we did 3 loads, we couldn't make it. It was a 2-load thing. So we changed all that, or Eric changed all that, and now we send it out. And that half hour of labor in the state of California is a lot. And so in the end of the month, that's thousands of dollars, and I think we have a better presented apartment and so forth. So the housekeeping, because of our system, we have to keep it in-house. And I think using a service, and there's probably a lot of great services, and some will probably say, nope, you're wrong, we do it cheaper and we're better than yours. And so maybe, but from my experience, it's this works better. And also, I don't think you should ever pay anybody for acquisitions in the rental arbitrage thing. There's a lot of people in these groups that for a living go out and find deals and then turn them over to you to take them over at a fee. And so that fee also eats into your initial profit. It's against the entire, me trying to get in cheaply. It actually adds to your acquisition. Plus you have less room to negotiate your concessions. And so, I'm opposed to that one. And then lastly, the property management, there's a lot. If you want to do it in another market, maybe, but I would prefer to build a team in another market. I'd rather go in and get 10 doors. And at 10 doors, you can afford a full-time operations guy with a bunch of 1099 housekeepers that maybe 1 or 2 of them are willing to, in the middle of the night, if someone gets locked out, we'll pay them $100. We charge the guest. We put that on our house rules. We have all these systems where you can do this. You know, you can squeak by and do this in another market and then build up and then have an operations in another city. Most of this is being done in Manila anyway. We have 6 VAs in the Philippines, and they run all of our housekeepers. They created their own short code with our housekeepers, and every day they're doing turnovers and submissions to Airbnb on damage. They're doing all, we have a system for that. And so really most of this operation stuff is really done behind a computer somewhere. And then messaging has happened between them on WhatsApp or Ring Central. And then we, so moving into another market, I think all you need to do is have a few boots on the ground. And then I think you can make it happen to build your own team.
Is that magic number about 10 then? Having 10
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you do the math. If you can get 10, you can get 10, pay your operational expenses and pay someone a good salary, someone that has operations, maybe it's a bit handy, that's willing to start with you small, like Eric did with us at 18, and then kind of grow from there. And so I also think the greatest formula, if you're an investor, if you want to get into another market, is start with arbitrage, get 5 doors or maybe 10 doors. Then you get to know that market intimately, and then you can have them do viewings and then invest, buy property as short-term rentals. I think that's the greatest formula. I think arbitrage is a great complement to an investment portfolio because you can use that cash flow for rehab or the down payment. And instead of just scaling your arbitrage business, I think the complement of the two is a great mix.
Someone asked here, how do you find your housekeepers? Are you posting that locally? What kind of...
We started on Facebook, and now it's we ask our housekeepers. So now we have enough of them. Yep, and so we ask, and we're in very different places. There's one particular city in this whole area. It's kind of remote, and it's difficult to get them up there. So we have to pay more. We have to pay for gas, and we're going through housekeepers up there a lot. So we're always reaching out to our housekeepers saying, if you know anybody, and you can go there. And we occasionally advertise on Craigslist, but we get, you get what you get on Craigslist. And it hasn't been the best. And so we use Facebook most of the time where we reach out to people.
What kind of suggestions do you have for some of us that are just beginning? You talk with hotel or apartment building managers. Where do you start?
So I was talking to this couple. I don't want to blow up their deal because they called me today. So I was talking to this couple who got started last week, and they're kind of savvy. They just got their first yes today on 2 in a great neighborhood, a fantastic one. And they didn't want to wait around for me to kind of coach them through it. They said, we're going to go for it. We just need a couple pointers. And that's all I did. I mean, it's like I said, it's not rocket science. There is a formula though. I mean, it's once you figure it out, everyone will have their own approach, but it's in the beginning sort of salesy. So you're going to go in there and you're trying to describe that you're a professional. You're a corporate housing professional. And what I first would like to do is make sure the building has a bunch of vacancies. And if they do have a bunch of vacancies, then you have a little bit of leverage. You can also find out if their company has allowed corporate housing in any of their properties. It doesn't have to be that particular property because usually it's a property by property decision. But if the company does it in maybe another city or another area, then you know that as their corporate culture allows it. So then it's easier for you to convince them. And then lastly, for us, if we happen to kind of reverse engineer, if we have a relationship with them through our network or through the rents that we pay and things like that, if we can figure out how we know them, I track the leasing agents movement. So if and it's a high attrition business, so leasing agents are sort of an entry level sales job. A lot of them leave and they'll just move to different buildings. So we'll keep in contact with them. And when they land in a building that we think is a good one, and we've done research, we'll say, hey, and they'll pitch on our behalf. And that happened to a couple times. So there's a little bit of a networking component to it, right? But if you're going in cold, you just answer one of their Zillow apartments for rent, then look it up, try to see how many they have, figure out how many units that is, see what the market average is. If it's a little bit higher, then I make an approach, say I'm looking to rent. They think you're another residential renter. And then when you get a human on the phone, then you just say I'm with a corporate housing company. And right then they'll either either they're familiar with corporate housing. The traditional corporate housing is company comes in, leases for a couple of years and puts one tenant in that's screened. What I say is we're like that, but we have multiple guests on different intervals. And right then and there, like, oh, I see what you're saying. No, sorry, we're not interested. But that conversation I do face to face. Usually on the phone is I'm a corporate housing person, and a leasing agent just wants you to go through the unit. They just want to bring you down there. They're like, yeah. And you go there and you have your card and you point them to your website. You show them your portfolio on a tablet. When you're saying, I want those 7 apartments, I want them. And then they're like, your conversation immediately goes from that leasing agent to his or her boss. So they'll go, wait a minute. Level. They're like, wait, what were you talking about? And then we say what we are. I think you know so-and-so across town. And then you start doing your thing. But there's a sales component to it. And then you're like, so you want 7 apartments? Yes. And they're like, okay, so who are and then you start getting into the nitty-gritty with them and you leave it there with them. And then if they say yes, it's just started. The yes isn't the most difficult thing these days. It's getting the concessions that you really need to get to make that deal work. And so most people just jump at the yes because they're in, but you can get in a bad deal just like in any other thing, even in rental arbitrage.
Okay. So as you're continuing down your own path of growth, again, you're still focusing on a few units at a time and key markets, or you see this as through your group growing a little faster exponentially?
No, so we're continuing as our company. My wife and I are still we're actually negotiating as we speak into 2 cities. We're very interested in investing, and like I said, I'm very interested in creative finance. This past summer I flew all over looking at a couple deals. I came close, and I don't quite get the subject to model. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know how to speak the language yet, but I get more of the seller finance, and so it just so happens that since last summer, as you well know, the market, everything has changed. So now creative finance is pretty popular, right? And so,
absolutely,
yeah, right. And so I definitely think getting in other markets and getting and growing with arbitrage, but really then eventually getting into some either small multifamily, or I love hospitality, inns, cabins, that sort of thing, because then you're built right into the ordinance. A lot of cities are banning it, Austin and Dallas and all these cities. You get a hotel license, you can do well there. So I think definitely we'll be scaling. We're going for 80 doors this year. That's our goal by Christmas. 80 doors bought and rented, and we're on track for that. It'll just take, if you do the math, it takes 3 or 4 buildings and you're pretty much there. And so we're at 2 of those now in other cities, but I have to work out the logistics because I don't have all the boots on the ground or in this county. So that to me is one of the things a little intimidating, but we're definitely going to do something about that soon.
Awesome. If people want to reach out and work with you and talk with you, how do they get a hold of you?
So I think there's a link on here on this thing. It's scaleairbnb.kajabi, or you can email me, Richie at scaleairbnb.com. Oh no, sorry. It's scaleairbnb.com.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a little bit easy. We are Kajabi's this platform that has all of our coaching stuff. But scaleairbnb.com, and Richie, RICHIE, if anybody has any questions or if you need any materials. I give out most of it. I mean, I think I have 2,000 canned messages that we've fine-tuned over the years. Somebody asked about, can we bring in a dog or can I smoke on the balcony? There's an answer for that.
And it's those little things, right? So if you dress it once and dress it forever, come up every week, every weekend. So yeah.
Yeah.
Properties in North Cal?
What's that?
Do you have any properties in North California?
No, I don't. I think it looks like a great market. That's how I found that Jesse Vasquez guy. I was looking into stuff. He's in Modesto, and I found him on Bigger Pockets, and I think it's a great market up there.
Yeah. No,
but just be wary of regulation. It's happening in every city. And here's another cool thing. wherever there's tough regulation, right? So you think about the state of Texas and how they're eating California's lunch, right? They're saying, hey, California businesses, come here to Austin, and hey, do that. Cities are doing that. And so there's a city right now next to San Diego, and they're like, all right, we're going to charge you 14% TOT taxes, which is crazy, but you can short-term rent here. And so that's what they're doing. And so it's a phenomenon all around the country where there's high regulations of short-term rentals. The neighboring city, many times very nice, if not nicer, and low supply. So a host can do really, really well in some of those markets. And so I think there'll always be ways to navigate this sort of thing, or you can go right in those markets and just pay the toll, or make sure you get in before the lottery if they close it, or go midterm. So there's all kinds of ways to do this, even in a regulatory environment.
Just be creative. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Even
in the small town that I'm in right now, I was doing a little investigation on short-term rentals, and this whole community lives on the summer crowds that come up and stay. So short-term rental market has done very well here. Well, the city just passed an ordinance. They want their money. They want a tax on every short-term rental.
Yeah.
So there's always something going on in every city. So just be aware of it.
Yeah, it's a huge tax base if you think about it, especially the lesson learned after COVID. They shut down all the hotels in the state, and unfairly they allowed short-term rental operators because of the loophole. So the state controls the hotels, right? The cities, municipalities are the ones who regulate short-term rentals. So I think there was a disconnect in a lot of these cities, but a lot of hosts took it upon themselves to sit on the sidelines, and the other ones like me couldn't. And so we stayed open. And so we picked up a lion's share of that travel market. And so I think going forward, you just have to be, you have to know how to navigate these things. So, and the cities got addicted to all that money. And you can tell, if you look on a city's short-term rental website, it's so much nicer than the rest of their site. They're like making it user-friendly and like, oh no, you can apply here. You don't have to send in a PDF, click here. And it's funny. I was going to a lot of sites. I'm like, wow, they've really upped their game, because it's a huge tax base. Do the math at 12, 13, 14, 10% even of everyone that stays in a vacation rental in a market. That's a fortune. And so, that's the trade-off for some of these markets.
Give us a rundown real quick about your group that you have. What kind of mentorship do you have? What does that look like for folks that might want to?
Yeah, so I have an Airbnb Facebook group. It's great. It's very small. We just started it last month. There's only 500, maybe 600 people in there. Very active. People from all walks. There's designers in there that give out tips. There's other people that there's all kinds of different people in there. And through that group, we came up with the idea of doing an 8-week group mentorship. So we have 11 people. I've capped it at 10, but we had 2 people that signed up the last day. We're currently in it. It's 8 weeks. We're in week 3. And so every Saturday we do a group Zoom. Every Thursday, today, the videos drop. And so this week, the one that's on market research drops. And next week, competitor analysis. The week after that, approaching buildings. And I actually help them get on the phone and help close deals. And then how to make money, how to optimize your listing, get on multi-platforms, go direct booking, which is incredibly easy. I mean, every guest that stays with you, you can collect their data if they log into your Wi-Fi, and then just hit them with a text after they leave. Say, hey, next time you're in San Diego, look me up. We get 15% of our business from that. We're not even that active in it, which is big. And so operations is the next one, right? Systems and scale. And so that second to last module, week 7, was an eye opener for me, because I've always traded my time for money. And all the businesses that we've been in, I've always been, if I stepped away, it was over. And so this is one of those eye openers, like, wow. So week 7 is all about how we systemize everything. And that's Eric, my operations guy, is going to come in on that one and help me with it. And it's all the little things that I mentioned here about housekeeping and our software and our VAs and all that. And then the last module is how to scale, setting up multiple doors at the same time, negotiating multiple buildings at the same time to make sure that you have a good deal flow. So you're only taking good deals. And that's week 8, sorry. And so it's just an 8-week group mentorship. And there's a one-on-one component to it. Every Tuesdays I'm doing coaching calls. And so we have them in there now, our first group. this is kind of a new thing for me. So I tried it out. I'm taking a few mentorships, and some of them are good, and some of them I'm not getting the hand holding that I want and need. And so I'm doing that because I want to crush it for these guys. And I'll probably do 1 or 2 more group mentorships. And after that, I'll probably turn it into something else. But right now I'm doing at least 3 group mentorships.
And what is the cost of that mentorship?
There's a couple costs. So I have 2 tracks. One track that's the 8-week group mentorship, and the other one is 8-week group mentorship, but it comes with what they call a credibility package. And in that, it allows you to, on behalf of our mentorship, approach a building and use our track record, our references. So I think I mentioned you earlier, there was a gal that contacted me from a big apartment complex. She's actively helping me look for other buildings that she used to work in. So I actually went to her and I said, hey, do you know anybody at this building? Do you guys own it? And she said, no, you need me to help you? And so through that, and so every time she has a vacancy, she throws them at us and we take them. So there's a little bit of a relationship. So I'm allowing to leverage that relationship insofar as it's not going to tax my connections too much. Like if they're not bothered too many times for these calls. So it costs more, but it ranges from $3,500 to $5,900. The 8-week group mentorship that I'm doing now, everyone in the group had paid $3,500, and there's a payment plan part of that too. But for most big ticket mentorships, the minimum is typically $35. Like the one I'm in, I think I paid $10,200 for PACE's program.
Yeah.
And I was gonna do the $7,800 one, and they're like, no, you can do the $10,200. And they'll do the underwriting for you in the last one. And I'm like, okay. And I like it. The energy is great in the group. I guess it's what you put in it kind of thing. And I just haven't gotten there yet. There's great info on the Discord, or when I used to be on the Discord, and the group is cool. But I said, you know what, if I do mine, it's going to be a lot less. And I'm going to actually be talking to those people, because my litmus test is you have
personal,
to be, yeah. And plus, I think you have to be if you're taking a coaching thing, the person has to be doing it, like literally has to be in the middle of what they're doing. It couldn't be a year ago or 3 years ago and they're pausing. They have to, I want to show you how we're setting up our units today. Like, here's the furniture in that to me was part of the reason why I like Pace, because he's in that. On the other hand, I'm not able to get someone on the phone when I want to, like I'm available to do. So anyway, for that reason, I decided to intentionally keep it a little bit lower, or a lot lower, and definitely have that one-on-one accountability through the process.
And is there a platform or platforms that you use to collect your rents and manage your tenants and your contracts?
No, so that's determined upon the building, and a lot of the ones that are using Rent Cafe now. So we have an account with Rent Cafe, I think it's Rent Cafe, and we can log in and we can see multiple accounts. And one of them, we have 31 apartments, so we can pay our rent in one platform, because they're separate companies in the same platform. So I don't know if they even know that. So we can go into one instead of logging in others. We don't pay on auto pay. So when you're paying $110,000 a month every month for rent, putting an auto pay is very risky, because in auto pay it doesn't say a set amount, it says amount, whatever amount is due. So they could change the due amount. I don't know. I'm a little bit suspicious about that. So because every month they have a different, some part of the bill is a little bit different. Some of the buildings that you have to pay for the common area use, like water and stuff. And so every month is a little bit different. And so if you put on their auto pay, I just thought one day a month, my wife goes in and she goes and pays those manually it's a lot now.
Yeah. But at least you're in control and you see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't like seeing that. I'm like, look at that number. That's absurd.
Yeah.
and the investor in me says, that could be going toward the debt, right? That $100,000. And that's probably the mindset thing to a lot of investors. Say, what are you thinking? I'd rather buy a condo, and goes to that. But when your cash on cash return is 200 or 300 times, 300% on this versus that. And it went from that $4,500 to start back then. And literally we did every door, those first 18 doors were all by cash flow. So the first door got the second door, and the second and the first got the two others. And because we got 10 weeks on those 4 doors got us those 3 in Del Mar and the other ones in La Jolla and so on. And the next year we did dip in our pocket. We did because it was scaling too quickly. But there's a case to be made. You can do it purely on cash flow, and you can do it in investment. But I think, like I said, I don't think it's either or. I think they're apples and oranges. The way I look at it, a short-term rental operator that owns his property is running 2 businesses. They're a real estate investor, and then they're in a hospitality play in their real estate. And a lot of them get the second part wrong. They're not doing it right. Whereas where you're doing arbitrage, you're a hospitality. This is not real estate. And so if you can get good at both of those, like you could own real estate and you know how to do short-term rentals or midterm rentals, and you know how to market it and do operations and all that. It's, I think, a great formula to do both, to do arbitrage and to buy and then do short-term rental out of those properties and use the cash flow to help you with the investment.
Richard, one more time, what is your Facebook group name?
It's 7-figure Airbnb. Let me see if I got that right here. Seven-figure Airbnb formula. Yeah.
I'll put it in here, but it's also on our Facebook group as well. So
yeah, I believe I put it there. Yeah, so it's there. It's yeah, it's really neat group. It's a really neat group. They're growing. A lot of people in there that are interested in arbitrage. A lot of investors in there too that I met through a lot of the creative and other groups that I post in. I mean, I've been posting stuff about our accent walls that we just started experimenting in a low season, and I'll holy cow, all these people are like, DMing me. So then I invite them to the group, and then I'll invite them to our group, and then through that process, and we try to offer different content in the group than you would otherwise get in other places. So.
No, I know in our group we have lots of active people, and one of the things I love about real estate is one of the things I hate about real estate. There's just so many different ways to formulate a business. You just got to kind of pick a path that speaks to you, right? And follow that path. So my path may not be your path, so to speak. But in this group, there's so many people that want to go, how do I get started? Well, what do you want to do? Right? So it's great that people will have an opportunity to reach out to you and get into the short-term rental market and hopefully do some arbitrage. I think it's exciting. Yeah, it was exciting. I from the late fall, when I first stumbled into it, I told a buddy of mine, I remember where I was, and I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. And he said, yeah, me too. And so then by October, when I was actively going out there and doing it, I'm like, you're going to do this? He's like, well, and he waited. And now he was one of those people that I helped start one. So he waited 2 years. So I said, yeah. So I'm helping him, but I was like, you know what, that was in retrospect, that was a pretty sweet time to get in, despite all the craziness that happened. Because think about it this way: what if I didn't get those first 2 doors, and then my main business, my main business still hasn't come back. In fact, we probably could. It was a great festival. We had 2 big brands in that festival, and we get emails every day. But the margins are ridiculous. What, 11%? It's a topsy-turvy industry, being an outdoor festival, right? Yeah. And highly regulated. And it was physically difficult, and it was also just me. And so it was just incredible circumstances that I found this business, and we were able to treat it like a business that it should be treated and scale it the way it was. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people do it as a side thing and keep it there, when you can treat it as a business, make it a side business, but then hire a small team and make it run on its own, and then you can kind of poke your head in there here and there. But that's just the way I look at it. I know we're running past the time we agreed upon, and I really appreciate your input, your energy. But I have a quick question for you. How did you again start? Kind of got to that point where you said, boy, in order to scale, I needed to build that team. How did you first find that first person? Eric came Indeed.com. So he was just, I put an ad out there and I knew I wanted someone in the hotel business, hospitality, because I didn't know at the time, or earlier than that I figured out that's what this is. That's what I'm sorely lacking. People would call me in the middle of the night, something break, and I wasn't, I'm not from the hospitality world. And so I didn't treat it like that. And so it was the smartest thing I ever did. In fact, I should have did it way, way sooner. And so we met,
He was out of Arizona State, graduated 2 years prior, worked 2 years as a supervisor. So he wasn't advanced in hospitality. He just had enough, and where he knew all the stuff, he knew the systems and all that he brought him in. We found together our software. We use Hospitable, which is a channel manager, and then we use Price Labs, our pricing tool, and a bunch of other kind of things. And then he and I started hiring and training our VAs from the Philippines. We go to onlinejobs.ph, which is just a job posting. I don't use those services. There's a bunch of them out there. And so there's services where you pay them and they'll hire and train VA virtual assistants for you. And we prefer to do it ourselves. And they get paid more through us, and B, you have more control, just like all that other stuff. So we have VAs that do all the midnight, they pick up all the calls, if something happens, and in the daytime they're helping with turnover. And so we systemized everything. And so anybody could do it. I mean, there is a formula for anything, but you can just go out and try to. If I got lucky with Eric, but in my opinion, this is a hospitality thing. So run a job ad with someone that has some experience as a supervisor or a manager in a hospital, and something that was pretty fluid. He worked for, I think, catering. And so, I just, again, got lucky. The guy, he works like he owns the company, which is amazing. And tomorrow is our contract renewal. So got to get ready to negotiate. I don't even negotiate. Whatever he asks for, I say, yeah. So he really just runs the shows. Without him, we wouldn't have been able to grow the way we did. He wants to grow way, way faster, especially last year. We sort of cooled everything down to kind of work everything out. But now we're back to scaling, but we're going to do it at a nice, even pace.
There is the point, like you said, there's some companies that have gotten too big too fast, and they run themselves a lot of cash. And there is a growth curve that's comfortable. There's one that's too slow. There's one that's too steep. You just got to kind of balance that out and have patience.
Yeah, and also you have to you've got to read the market, right? So last year would have been at our $2,250 average rent, and that's between 1 and 2 bedrooms and a few studios. If that was $2,950, we'd be looking at different margins, right? And that's where most people are. In fact, if I leased all of our properties last year, it would have been a little bit more than that. Prices in this county were absurd. There's still, in my opinion, need to kind of level off a little bit. At least apartments do. And so getting those concessions, getting 8 weeks, all that does, if you average out over a 12-month lease, really only gets it down to slightly below market. So it's not that great of a win. It's good from a cash flow perspective, and if you're getting it in the beginning, because you're able to get in and get your money back quickly. But still, if you get in expensive in anything, you can get hit hard. So I'm looking to grow, definitely looking to grow. If there's a great, amazing deal, I believe it's great, then you pounce. But right now, we're just getting 1 or 2 or 3 at a time. We typically negotiate a handful and then have an out to take all delivery of all 5. But typically, if all 5 work, we take them over a staggered period of time to pay ourselves back over 6-week period or so.
Well, you've done a lot for us tonight. You've given us a lot of information, a lot of thoughts. How can we help you besides following your Facebook group?
Just follow the Facebook group. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Join the Facebook group. Ask me any questions you want. Anything you want, I'll be able to throw at you, from the lease addendum or anything else. We even have design templates. We even have my sister helps me. She's a designer, but she helps me with all my wallpaper that we put in there. We get some, and we know the stuff that doesn't work, that doesn't stay, and then some of the stuff that we do. And so we have a lot of little tricks. Now, what we do as an arbitrage is probably different what people would do when they own a place, right? They probably put nicer wallpaper. We use peel a stick. They probably use, different, materials or, things like that. So we do it, and so it's a different thing. But whatever we have, we can offer. I throw them in the group all the time. In fact, we're going to start doing, I'm going to start doing weekly videos of operational tricks and things like that, housekeeper one, and some other things like that in there, if it helps. And so, so join the group if you like. It's scale. What did I say? It was a 7-figure Airbnb formula. It's called. Yeah. So join the group. That would be great.
I've joined. It's fantastic.
I saw you in there with the cowboy hat.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank you very much.
All right.
Forward to talking with you in the future.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good night.
Cheers. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I appreciate the way that you take our questions and turn them into just comments into the conversation. There
Yeah,
was one question that didn't get answered, but it was sent directly to me and then I reposted it. But he may have said it. It was
what was that?
what platform does he use to collect payment when they do direct booking?
Oh, I think he said the only one he has is that Rent Cafe.
Okay. Okay. So
Clarify that, and I'll leave it in the Facebook group tomorrow.
okay. Okay. That was from Dave Thompson.
All right.
Okay.
I think Dave
Thank you.
took out on us, but oh, there he is. He's still on. All right, I will copy you and Dave tomorrow. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.